Good evening, YouTube. It's your guy J Crew to you, coming at you here with another video here on June 27th, 2023. Doing a little late video here regarding the tragedy that took place out there in the Atlantic Ocean regarding that Oceangate uh, submarine uh, that unfortunately imploded and took the lives of 45 people, I believe, that were aborted. Just gonna give my little short opinion on what happened. I know I waited a few days longer than probably would be advisable by most people's standards, but I want to go ahead and just let people know what I feel about it. When I first heard that some people were going down to see the Titanic, uh, the long sunken cruise ship from like what 80 100 years ago, however long it's been that's been underneath the Atlantic Ocean. My first question was, why is anybody going down there to see that stuff? I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand why anyone would go down there and want to check that out, given that many people have been down there. And again, I guess it's not my thing to engage in deep sea diving for whatever reason. So that's probably the main reason I was even wondering why this was even taking place. And so when I heard this happen, I said, well, human curiosity has gotten the best of people's logic. And that's one of the first things that went through my mind is that, okay, this thing reportedly began, I want to say a couple of Sundays ago now, on the 18th in terms of when it was last heard from. And then I think tragically, around Thursday of last week, around the 22nd, it was confirmed that the submarine had imploded because they found like a little field of debris that was confirmed to be this little Ocean Gate submarine that unfortunately met its bitter end. Um, Me personally, with the Titanic, I guess it's become somewhat of a worldwide curiosity for some people out there in the world. And apparently, one of those who was curious about it is the gentleman that you see here on the screen. I don't know how well you can see him. He was the CEO of this company that built this submarine called Oceangate, and his name was Stockton Rush. He was the guy that built this submarine, and apparently, I think they had been on missions before, but they this time want to go down and see the Titanic. And he reportedly was asking that each one of the passengers fork over $250,000 to go down there to be able to see it. As I said, this guy right here, Stockton Rush, was one of the passengers above this little submarine, and I'm looking at an online article here, as you could probably can see, and I'm going to another one of the passengers here, Mr. Paul Henry Nargiolet. I don't even know if I said his last name right, but uh, he was supposedly the Titanic expert who went aboard the submarine. He said he had led six expeditions to the ship's wreckage site. It was known as the Titanic's greatest explorer. That alone tells me that his logic was abandoned. Because I'm like, how many times do you want to go down there and look at the same thing? I don't have that much of a fascination with anything where I want to keep going back and look at the same stuff over and over again, especially when you're in an environment that you do not fully control. Keep in mind, this is outside of any country's jurisdiction, which is why there was a lack of regulation, which is what I'll get to here in a few short minutes of my video. So anybody could have went down there without any sort of pushback from any legal authority, which I think is tragic, and which is why I think they need to change some of these things that go on with this type of stuff. It said this Nargio Lay guy was director of underworld research for RMS Titanic, an American company that owns the salvage right to the wreck and operates exhibits featuring artifacts from the ship. And I mean, that's cool and everything, but I still would not want to go down there like that, like multiple times when especially you're in an environment that you cannot really control. This is perhaps one of the more saddest, uh, you know, passengers that I heard about aboard the ship. It was a father and son. One guy, I'm probably gonna butcher their name because I think they may be some like Middle Eastern guys. I think the father was named Shahzada Dawood, who was 48. They said he was the vice chairman of Dawood Hercules, an investment and holding company based in Karachi, Pakistan. He said that it was a family-owned business, and he was on the board. And it said he was one of the heirs to Pakistan's largest family fortunes. And he took aboard his son, Suleiman, who he brought along with his voyage. And what was even kind of crazy to me, I've heard like in the past few days since this tragedy has taken place, that I think it was supposed to be his wife that was supposed to be with him. Cause I think they interviewed his wife, but for whatever reason, she did not go down there. I can't recall the reason off the top of my head, but she did not go. This was another gentleman that was aboard. His name Hamish Harding, and they said he was chairman of a company called Action Aviation. It says it sells aircraft to Fortune 100 companies, international corporations, and heads of state, and people in the entertainment and sports world. This says the British businessman is referred to as a billionaire in the British press, but Forbes magazine noted that he's not included on the world's list of richest people. He was another one of these guys who kind of, chose to go above, tried to board this ship and go down to see the Titanic. What really kind of has really made me shake my head about this stuff is not only the things I just said, but I've heard some additional information that's come on out over the past few days to a week that has really had me questioning these people. Excuse me, I'm sneezing. That made me question these people's sanity. Uh, this gentleman Stockton Rush had done interviews about this Oceangate submarine vessel before, and he had indicated in interviews that the material which the submarine was made out of is not necessarily what you think. Most people who have gone below depths in the seas to like where it's a mile or two, they go in vessels that are, or should I say, it's been advised you go in a vessel that's maybe made out of steel or some very, very hard sort of design material that could sustain the pressure that you're going to be under once you go that low into the sea. Because keep in mind, down there, down below in the sea, us humans, we just couldn't go down there for obvious reasons. Number one, of course, we would have to, you know, have maybe like some oxygen bottles, strapped to us for us to go down even close to that depth. And also, we would be susceptible to the crushing pressure, of the ocean once we would go that deep. Our bodies are not sustained to hold that, to uphold that kind of pressure. In other words, we would just implode. We would just be killed. And unfortunately, that's what happened with these folks. Except they were on a submarine. It was made out of material that was not steel. It was some other kind of like alloy material that they had made it out of, and it had not been approved by any sort of marine oriented or ocean oriented authority as a vessel that people should be advised to board. It was not approved at all. That was one of the big problems I had with this whole thing when I heard about it. Not only was this vessel not approved, but even during old interviews, you search the internet hard enough when they're interviewing this guy, there were certain parts that this dude would go to just at a regular retail store, like Camper World or Home Depot, and he would get like look parts that would kind of attach cameras to it and strap that onto the submarine. And what was even more striking is that they used a PlayStation controller or some kind of video game controller to control this vessel. And so when I'm hearing this stuff, I'm like, that sounds like something he just kind of went out in his backyard almost. He sort of added on to this thing that maybe started like in some kind of construction oriented facility, but then it ended up maybe like in the backyard or something. And that's just weird to me. When I'm going in an environment which I cannot control, the various elements of it, whether it's the weather, the pressures of the environment, and I'm in a vessel which we can't really see out of that clear. I'm gonna have a huge problem with that. Number one, you really shouldn't even go down there to me. That's just my personal opinion because you're not in control enough of the environment. Number two, if it's made out of that poor material, I'm gonna expect probably to have some issues down there, given that I wasn't advised to do that by anyone. That's just it defies conventional logic. It's just flat out dumb to me. I mean, excuse me if I'm offending somebody, but that's just flat out dumb. That's just something you don't do. If you're in an environment that you cannot control, and it's just dumb. Uh, so I mean, when I heard these things, I was like, these people were playing with the devil, and the devil came to collect. Some things you just don't do, and there was even something that even emerged that was even more startling. Mr. Rush, as I understand it, advised these folks, or he made them sign a document saying like if something happens to where they were injured or died or something, that he couldn't be sued over it. And I'm sitting there just listening to that. I'm like, that would have made me not even go at all because he's letting me know that they're not that confident in the vessel that they're riding in. That he's not so confident where he feels like that he needs to make us sign something like that. He's lacking, super confidence in what this mission is trying to accomplish, which is not that much to me. Give if you've already been down there multiple times, as in case of one of those other passengers that I mentioned. That Titanic expert. Don't know why you keep going down there, and may you rest easy. But I don't know why you keep going down there, sir. Why you kept going down there? That's just that didn't make any sense to me. But it just I think there was even some videos, and I'm going to be paraphrasing Mr. Stockton Rush, where he was recorded as saying, sometimes when it comes to innovation and exploration, you have to basically throw caution to the wind. And I'm like, no, you don't. Not if you can't get approval, at least in some aspect of your mission. And so this whole thing was just a tragedy that really could have been avoided, man. And it's just sad that it even got to this point. For those of you who seen the movie Titanic, which I believe was released in maybe 1997, 1998. I remember I was in high school and it was a huge deal. It was basically like a romantic adventure. And what was it started? Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. I may be wrong. It's been so long since I've seen it. But James Cameron directed that film. And it's been somewhat of a passion for him to actually go down there. James Cameron himself, I think, has been quoted as saying that it took him 7 years to build a quality level vessel in which there was intensive study, review, and of the vessel that he was going down in there to explore the Titanic. And I found a video here online in which Mr. Cameron expresses his thoughts about what these folks were doing in the Titanic submarine with this Oceangate company. And I want y'all to sort of pay attention to his thoughts. I thought it was very interesting what he had to say.
Oceangate shouldn't have been doing what it was doing. I think that's pretty clear. I wish I had been more vocal about that, but I think I was unaware that they weren't certified because I wasn't really studying it. I wasn't really interested. Stockton Rush asked me if I wanted to go out there and dive this season. I wasn't interested. There was a lot of concern about this outfit and this sub. A lot of concern, even to the extent that I wasn't involved in it because I was making Avatar 2 at the time, but a lot of them got together and wrote a letter to Oceangate and said, you have to certify. You cannot take people down. It's irresponsible, and it could lead to catastrophe. Monday morning, when I first found out about the incident, got on a whole bunch of calls and emails. It's a small community. Within an hour and a half, I had the following information. They were on descent. They were at 3,500 feet. They lost comms and tracking. The last one being the critical one, because the transponder that's used to track a sub during descent and on the bottom is a fully autonomous system. It's in its own pressure housing, and it has its own battery power. So for them to lose comms and tracking at the same time, sub was gone. There was no question in my mind. For days, I tried to run other scenarios that could account for it. I could come up with nothing. So the next thing I did was contacted a few more people and managed to track down There are acoustic networks around. Some are research, some are intelligence. Um, we got confirmation within an hour that there had been a loud bang at the same time that that comms were lost. A loud bang on the hydrophones, loss of transducer or transponder, loss of comms. I knew what happened. Sub imploded. I sent emails to everybody I know. I said, we've lost some friends. The sub has imploded. It's on the bottom in pieces right now. I sent that out Monday morning. I never believed in that technology of wound carbon fiber, wound filament, cylindrical hull. I thought it was a horrible idea. I wish I'd spoken up, but I assumed somebody was smarter than me, because I'd never experimented with that technology, but it just sounded bad on its face because we make pressure hulls out of contiguous material, steel, titanium, ceramic, acrylic. And so you can model it, you can do finite element analysis of it, and you understand the yield properties, you understand the number of cycles that it can take. But you can't do that with a composite material because it's two dissimilar materials, sort of bonded together. And so we all knew that the danger was delamination and progressive failure over time with microscopic water ingress and fatigue, what they call cycling fatigue. And we knew that if the sub passed its pressure test, it wasn't going to fail on the first dive. It might fail on dive 7, or I don't know what they're at, but it's going to fail over time, which is insidious. You don't get that with steel or with titanium. Now there's one wreck lying next to the other wreck for the same damn reason.
As you can see, James Cameron gave a much more in-depth analysis about the scientific aspect of the material that they were using to dive down there in this submarine. And as I said, he's been on many expeditions down there, so I think he's more qualified than I am to speak on that. But either way, I just want to give my brief thoughts on this tragedy, man. It just could have been avoided. And it just seemed like sometimes our desire to want to discover and want to innovate overwhelms our better judgment. I think that's what happened here. I think that in its simplest form, that's what went on. Let me know what y'all think about this. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe, click the subscribe button. She got J Crew to you with a long overdue video here on June 27, 2023. Y'all have a good one.